Good evening, everyone. So, anybody, any idea who are we meeting today? Okay. So this is Pourush Sood. Okay, and this is a topper, and sir will discuss with you all the doubts you have, his UPSC strategy, content, and the sources he refer, or whatever doubts you have, you can ask. Okay, he's from IIT Kharagpur. His optional path was mathematics, and he's from Delhi only. So Delhi वाले थोड़ा proud feel कर सकते हैं. मैं बड़ा proud feel कर रही थी. Okay, so rest of the details will be shared by Pourush himself. So let's have a huge round of applause for Pourush.
Yeah, am I audible now? Yeah. So hi, good evening, everyone. Did you have a lot of classes before this, or are you guys fresh right now? Okay, great. So my name is Pourush Sood. I have secured an All India rank of 29 in UPSC CSC this year, and my optional was mathematics, and this was my second attempt. So I'll just quickly tell something about me so that you can at least get an idea of how long it took for me to prepare for this exam. I graduated from IIT Kharagpur with a degree in electronics in May 2020, and I started my preparation after graduating. I joined a job as an embedded software engineer in Texas Instruments from August of 2020. And I gave my first attempt at prelims in 2021 alongside my job, but I could not clear prelims in that attempt. In April 2022, I left my job. So I was working for like 1.5 years. I didn't leave it, I took a sabbatical basically. And in June, I gave my second attempt at prelims and then mains in September, interview in March of this year, and I got the result last month. So yeah, this was my journey. I had 2 attempts, and the second attempt essentially was with a full-time prep. My optional was math. I'll discuss it a little later why I chose math in particular. And also, I'd like to add that whatever I speak here today, please take that with a pinch of salt. That strategy is what worked for me. Probably if I would give the exam again, it may or may not work. So whatever I say here, please take it with a pinch of salt and learn things that you think would benefit you from this. And don't just like blindly follow, so to speak. And yeah, if you have any questions, you can ask in between. You can raise your hand. I'll be happy to attend to those. Is this? How do I change the slide? Huh? Okay. So I mean, I think we're not able to change the slide for now. Yes, ma'am. So in till that time, we can interact if you'd like. So how many of you guys are from Delhi here? Okay, very few. Okay, so leave that. How many of you are engineers? Okay, that's a big number. Great. And does anybody have math as their optional here? Okay. So what about the rest of the engineers? What's your optional? Sociology, anthropology, philosophy, PSIR. Okay, right. So as I discussed, my first attempt, I could not clear prelims. I had a score of 84.5 and the cutoff was some 87 point something. So, and in my second attempt, I secured 103.7 in prelims, and I think the cutoff was 88 this year. In mains, so these are my scores. I won't say I have scored very low or very high in any subject. I have got decent marks in all subjects. Mathematics was relatively better, where I managed to secure 300 total. So I would like to first talk about what my general approach towards studying for this exam was. So in the start of my preparation, as most of us do, we look at toppers videos and all, right? So I started off by watching toppers videos and trying to chart a strategy for myself. So I used the toppers videos to prepare a book list for myself. And I would recommend to you guys also that select your sources at the start and stick to them thereafter. As we move to in the presentation, you'll understand why that is very important. Secondly, a lot of people also have asked me whether I prepared for prelims or for mains or for both. But I'd like to say that there is no prelims specific source prep. Whatever sources you're using for prelims will be the same as the ones that you use for mains. And in fact, for studying mains, only things will be added. Nothing will be subtracted as such from your preparation. So how I started off was, there was a set of basic books which I chose, and I highlighted the important portions from those books which I thought would be necessary. And then in my subsequent iterations of revision or so, I just read those highlighted portions. Right. So again, core is very important. We usually think that this exam involves a lot of rote learning. It does, prelims does, I would say. But it also involves a lot of understanding and making your concepts clear. Concepts not just in science and technology and geography, but also concepts in history. So I think making your core strong becomes extremely important. And you will also need to keep on revising your basics sometimes. For example, in engineering, when I was in college, even the basic concepts of math we used to forget after a couple of months. But in this exam, I think the beauty is that once you are clear with the basics, you don't need to revise them again and again. You'll just need to get your basics strong, and sometimes revision will be required, but you'll stick to the core, and after that you will build your preparation on top of your basics. And some people have also asked me that there are some things specific to mains, like there is an ethics paper in mains, if you know. So all that came later for me. All that came after I gave my prelims exam. I did not mix my mains only preparation and prelims plus mains preparation. So again, one question is that did I attend any coaching? I mostly relied on self-study. For prelims and mains tests, I use the Vision IAS test series. For optional math, I used self-study only. For prelims, for economy, I had joined a course, but for the rest, I was I had just done self-study. And these were all the places where I gave my mock interview. So all of them have told that I am from their institute now. so yeah. So now let's come to the prelims and mains part. If anybody has any question, you can please feel free to ask. So, okay, I'll come here now. So, for prelims, the basic strategy is, again, as I first told you, and I think everybody tells the same thing, that keep your sources fixed. And keep your eyes and ears open. The book list that we have for prelims, I would say any book list is necessary, but it's not sufficient. It might be, you might need to study that to answer all the basic questions and all. But you need a lot of general knowledge, you need a lot of general awareness to answer a lot of questions, especially you would have seen the prelims 2023 paper. It cannot be answered just by relying on basic sources. You have to keep your eyes and ears open all the time. I can give you some examples as we progress. One example is going beyond the book and PDF. So for example, geography, NCERT, physical class 11 is there, right? If you just read that book, it's very difficult to understand what's happening. So what you need to do is, you need to see what topic you're not able to understand. Go to YouTube or go to the internet, go to ChatGPT even, and ask them to clarify what you want to know. Okay, उसमें video आ जाएगी, उसमें you'll get a very nice animation or whatever, and your concept will become solid. After that, whenever such a question is asked, or whenever such a question is asked beyond what was there in the book, you can apply that knowledge, whatever you learned from watching those videos and all. But ye nahi hai ki you keep doing that only. You have to think about the time as well. But I always suggest that going beyond the book or the PDF is very important, because sometimes you will see that the questions come from the book, but they have asked some topic which is slightly beyond what the scope of the textbook. Same with PDF. For example, if you study Vision IAS, I did the PT 365 of Vision IAS before prelims, and you'll realize that in a lot of places it's very brief and you don't know the concept. So you'll have to make that concept clear, and maybe add a small, I mean, I use digital notes. So add a comment to the PDF saying, explaining whatever term that you did not understand in that slide, or in that write-up. And during the prelims exam, what is important is firstly general awareness. For example, you remember in last year's prelims there was a question on Gucci, a type of mushroom. And some celebrity had posted a picture of that sometime on Instagram or something, and everyone was like, "Chalo note kar lete hain, UPSC mein na pooch lein." And that is exactly what happened. And also, yeah, Modi ji also ate that. So yeah, so whatever you're reading on Instagram also, or Facebook or whatever, if there's something that you don't know, then it's always a good idea to research a little more on it. And even if you read it, see, the prelims exam has MCQ type. So even if you do not know the complete thing, you can try to make educated guesses in an MCQ type question. So all those things really help. Next, you need to have develop the ability of logical guessing. Elimination probably wouldn't work next time, like it did not work in 2023, but logical guessing still works. And you need to have confidence in your preparation. If you have studied polity very well and the prelims exam states some fact which you've never studied, it's probably wrong. That's what I felt. Like, for example, in one of my 2020 prelims, 2021 prelims which I couldn't clear, there was this question which said that in case there is a by-election which happens because some candidate stood from more than two constituencies, then the party has to pay some amount to election commission as fine or something for the conduct of next election. Now this is a major point which I never studied in Lakshmikant or something. So it's probably, so my idea was that this would probably be wrong, because I was confident of what I've studied and from the mock tests as well. So that was one way I used to logically guess. Secondly, everybody says that extreme words like all, never, you always have to be cautious. Those are probably wrong, but then again, not blindly. It's not key if you don't know anything about the question and you see an extreme word, you'll just mark it as not correct or something. You need to know some of that concept, and only if you think, maybe through common sense or through general knowledge, that yes, I can think of a counter example, only then will you guess. Otherwise, no. Similarly, possibilities like can be, maybe, like this year, I think there was a question on green hydrogen or something, where they asked about which of the following applications can be of green hydrogen or something. So there also, again, not blindly, but we already know about green hydrogen, right? So we can think about whether that can be used for, in coal refineries or something. Just apply your logic, and probably you'll get that right then. And then go with an open mind. What I mean by this is that some people say that हमें 80 questions attempt करने हैं, 90 questions attempt करने हैं. But do you think that strategy would have worked in this paper in 2023? No, right? So go with an open mind. You will be able to realize कि paper कितना hard है, कितना easy है. Blind guesses नहीं मारने हैं, but educated guesses मार सकते हो. Like, for example, in the 2021 paper, I answered 81 questions, which is not very high compared to the standards that people set for prelims. So again, be confident with your prep. Don't think ki, I have to answer 95, 90 questions, because negative marking se bhi cut off reh jata hai. So be careful about that. And I think everybody knows this already, that if you're able to eliminate two options, then it is a good idea usually to mark, because when you count it over a couple of questions, then the net result is generally positive. CSAT, I'd say that I don't have the capacity to talk about CSAT, because I did not study for CSAT. and my engineering background greatly helped me study this. So I would suggest that for this you could talk to someone else. Now let's talk about mock tests of prelims. So whether is it important to join a test series or not? So I'll give you one example of what happened to me in my first attempt. So in my college, mid-sems are there, right? Mid-sem exams. Those used to happen from 9 to 11. Okay, 9 to 11. And the prelims happens from 9:30 to 11:30, right? So during my first attempt, I started at 9:30 obviously, but I ended at 11 thinking that the exam is only till 11, and I knew that it's not. I mean, but I don't know what happened during that exam, and I ended it at 11. And obviously I suffered because of that, because I might have answered some questions in haste. I got very simple questions also wrong. So I think that only stresses the fact that giving mocks is important. What I used to do was I used to give one mock per week, and so the analysis of the mock is very necessary. You already know that. Um, so why I used to give one mock per week, and I used to do the analysis during the rest of the week. So for example, one mock has 100 questions, right? So 10 rows उठा लिए, या 15 मैं rows कर लेता था after my preparation or something as an additional effort. So analysis is very important even for the questions that you got correct. If you see that the PYQs, right, they have become extremely important now. A lot of times the options that are there in the PYQs, they are regurgitated and put in as a separate question in the next prelims. So at least I was going to give this prelims as well. Usse pehle result aa gaya, so I didn't have to. But I was preparing for this prelims as well, and there I did apply this strategy that I reserved like at least a week to give to the previous year questions of each subject. And yeah, so a lot of people, yeah, also the free online physical, any kind of mock test, you just need to sit for 2 hours and give. Okay, I'm sure you guys are enrolled in Vision already, so you would be giving the test series of Vision IAS. But in case anybody is watching, and I gave the test series online, and for this attempt I just gave a physical one, so free one. So whatever works for you, that doesn't matter. It's just that you have to sit for 2 hours and give it religiously. Some people also ask whether they should enroll for multiple test series or they should just stick to one. In my view, you should stick to one, especially when you're giving those, what do you call those, sectional tests, right? Polity ka alag exam. So stick to those. You'll also get to give some full length mocks of the same institute. But baad mein, a lot of these coaching institutes have these free open mock tests later on, like different institutes, right? So you can give those. You can enroll in those and give those. You'll get an all India rank also. There'll be a lot of people who would be giving those exams. So stick to one initially and give all the exams there. And later on, few weeks or or a month or so before prelims, you can move to the open mocks as well. And this I feel is very important. You must revise whatever. Firstly, you must note down whatever you did not know in a mock, and then revise it before the exam. I can give an example of how I made my notes for ये link पे कैसे जाएंगे हम? Okay, so I'll just continue till then. So this is an example of the kind of notes that I made from the analysis of mocks. Okay, and you have to be ready for the pattern change. You already saw that, right? Make sure that you're not bogged down by any such hiccups during the examination. And there was another question that was asked in the sheet where it was asked when to shift focus completely towards prelims. In my view, I mean, what I did was to move to solely for prelims, 1.5 to 2 months in my case. The reason being that I never used to follow monthly compilations and all. PT 365 करने में time लगता था, so I had to give some time to that. Okay, we'll come back to this later. But yeah, so now the sources that I used for the preparation of different subjects, these are core courses. I mean, prelims say 1 or 2 months pehle, you'll just read these. You'll not read the basics and all that. So polity, obviously, Lakshmikant, modern history, spectrum. Yeah, ancient and medieval history, I used old NCRT. People say that Tamil Nadu books are better, I've heard. If you want, you can use those also. But I had made these as my source and I wanted to stick to them. I did not want to change my source in between because I was comfortable with these books and they're good books only. So I chose these. Environment ke liye I use Shankar IAS book. When we discuss this in detail, I'll come to what are the pros and cons of this book. Economy ke liye I use Mrunal sir's notes, economy and social issues as well. So everything is covered in these. Geography ke liye I use the 4 NCRTs. Nothing, no GC Leong and all. Art and culture ke liye, I did not know how to study art and culture, and Nitin Singhania, I've never, it's opened, it's a huge book. And there is a NCRT also, right? Class 11 Fine Arts karke NCRT. Introduction to Fine Art. I tried reading that, but that also like, so I just used these YouTube videos of Pratik Nayak sir and I made notes out of those. But if you have any notes from your coaching and all, I think those should suffice. Anyway, wo answer hote nahi hai finally. So, and current affairs ke liye PT 365 was my only source and mock tests of prelims. So उसमें जो भी whatever I did not know from current affairs or from the other static portion also, I use those. So I think this is pretty concise, but there are some basic stuff and all also. Okay, so now we'll come to these individually. Okay, anybody has any questions till now? Okay, so we'll come to individual sources. So for current affairs, newspaper, be consistent with the newspaper, obviously. But I never made any notes or something from the newspaper because I did not have that much time. And I made notes, but a few months before interview, because interview prep requires a different kind of a mindset where you have to delve deep into the controversial issues as well. And those you'll not find in any compilations and all. So I made notes from the newspaper few months before the interview, solely for the interview prep. PT 365 or monthly, anything should work in my opinion. I used PT 365 because usse pehle I was doing a job and monthly was not possible for me. And PT 365 and monthly के tests भी होते हैं उसके पीछे, quiz types. So I really used to like doing those क्योंकि उससे test हो जाता था कि, so जैसे suppose I finished one PT or one monthly today, maybe 2 or 3 days from now, I will do the test of that, the quiz of that, and analyze कि उसमें कितनी गलतियाँ आई हैं and all. You'll realize that your attention capacity is not very high after giving that. So, and editorials are a must. Everyone knows that. Editorials are must. Why? Because they help you write mains answers. Yeah. Polity के लिए basics are class 11 NCRT, political theory, and there is one other colorful book, right? Democracy wala, that one. I think political theory is something that we usually neglect, but it is a very important book to build our base of what equality, fraternity, all these things actually mean. And they will help you answer a lot of questions in prelims as well and write answers in mains also. So I would say that please give a nice thorough reading of this book and try to immerse yourself into whatever they are saying, not just कि ये तो कुछ भी बोल रहे हैं, I'll just flip the pages. For pre and mains both, Indian Polity by Lakshmikant obviously, and इसके साथ एक book आती है Objective Indian Polity by Lakshmikant, which has MCQ questions from each chapter of Lakshmikant. So after doing that chapter or before prelims or mains, I just used to do this one, and उससे I at least जब marks ठीक आ जाते थे उसमें, तो I used to be happy कि हाँ polity की prep अच्छी हो गई है. And PT 365 Polity is also nice. It covers all the current affairs of that year, and those do help in mains as well because mains में वो सारे issues पूछे जा सकते हैं. After that, for mains alone, you know that everyone knows the syllabus and all, right? GS2 mein there are some topics on governance that you need to cover. So there is this book called Governance in India by Lakshmikant. उस book में से थोड़े से topics हैं, very select topics like comparison of constitutions of India and the world, and Administrative Reforms Commission recommendations. All these things, these can greatly be used in your answers. So I used this book for selected topics, maybe just 1 or 2 chapters are sufficient. And vision notes also I used for 1 or 2 topics. There are topics like role of civil services in a democracy, that is one. Second is, I think, yeah, there are some topics. There is this topic on Model Code of Conduct and our Representation of People's Act. You'll not find that very much in detail in Lakshmikant or the Governance in India by Lakshmikant. So I used vision notes for those two topics. If you just read the syllabus one side, you'll be easily able to map the topic with the books that you have. So whatever is not there in the books, you'll have to cover it from some other place, and I use vision notes for that. History, art, and culture. This was the toughest for me. And basics I covered from the NCRTs of class 6, 7, 8. What do you guys use? Same thing? I think yeah, everyone says the same thing. Pre and mains के लिए again, as I mentioned, old NCRT for ancient and medieval, Spectrum for modern India, art and culture के लिए Pratik Nayak sir's YouTube, and PT 365 of culture. But this is very tough, this PT 365. And there are so many names and all, नहीं याद होता है इतना. So maybe just a few important things that you feel like, जैसे कोई UNESCO World Heritage sites आई हैं. Very selective reading of PT 365 culture I did. Baki, there are some topics in GS1 like post-independence India and world history, which you need to cover. So for that, I did this book called Politics in India Since Independence, NCRT की book है. And world history के लिए Pratik Nayak sir's YouTube plus internet, I had made some notes out of this. This book is pretty nice actually, and you just need to give it one reading and उसके बाद retain हो जाता है. It's like a basic book only. So you just read it once and उसके बाद maybe underline कर लो बाद में revise करने के लिए. But बाकी it's a very good book I feel. And world history के लिए सर प्रतीक नायक सर का YouTube अच्छा है, but it's a little bit in detail. तो थोड़ा सा time निकाल के कर लो, it will help. I'll show you my notes also later on, little later. But those are links. I don't know if they'll open or not. So these were the kind of notes that I used to make from the questions that I got wrong in mocks and all, or the questions which I did not know something about. So for example, I mean, I just wanted to show this. That's it. Like, so these are like quick revision notes which I can quickly revise before prelims or a week before prelims or something. So yeah, I think that just wanted to show that. So for economy and social issues, there is one book called Indian Economic Development, है ना, class 11 की, which talks about liberalization and all that, and then goes to all the poverty and all issues. That is a nice book. I just read it once, उसके बाद I never opened it again, but it is a good book. Baki, Brunal sir's notes, I mean, that's what I followed. I don't know what you guys follow, but those were pretty sufficient for me for this. Those were my only source. And PT 365 economy also I had covered. उसमें agriculture वगैरह के काफ़ी अच्छे points होते हैं, which can, and reports and all also are there, which can easily be covered. बाकी इसमें you understand that mains और prelims के mindset अलग होना चाहिए. Sources are same, but mindset is different. When you're studying for pre, you will see what report was done by which organization. For mains, you will remember some statistic, and you will have a more analytical mindset. कि इस चीज़ के pros क्या हैं, इस चीज़ के cons क्या हैं. So the same source, but you will do a reading with a different mindset. So Munal sir के notes में social issues भी cover हो जाते हैं. Environment में I use Shankar IA's book of environment. Now there are two asterisks here क्योंकि ये थोड़ी सी गड़बड़ book है. It's like, firstly, some parts of it are very well written and some parts of it are not well written. So you'll be able to identify that easily when you study the book. Secondly, the issue is that the edition is quite old. At least the one that I had was quite old. I don't know if there is a new edition right now. So उसमें 2005, 2006 के भी topics हैं. So I read all of that. I read it completely from start to end in my first reading. But in the subsequent readings, I came to know कि what I can leave and what I can do. Also, अब environment is a very dynamic topic, right? अभी COP27 हुआ है, तो उसके नई चीज़ें आई हैं. वाइल्ड लाइफ प्रोटेक्शन एक्ट पूरा रिवैम्प हो गया है, तो उसमें शेड्यूल्स अलग आए हैं. फॉरेस्ट कंजर्वेशन वो सारे एक्ट्स में चेंजेस आते रहते हैं रेगुलरली. EIA पूरा चेंज हो गया है. तो you'll have to make sure कि you do that from some external source like the internet, because this book will not be fully sufficient for all that. And ये पढ़ के you should not get confused, क्योंकि इसमें कुछ और लिखा होगा, amendment कुछ और आ गई है. Also इसमें जो वाइल्ड लाइफ की लिस्ट है, स्पीशीज की लिस्ट है, उसके IUCN स्टेटस में भी बहुत गलतियां हैं. बट बिल्डिंग अ बेस, दिस बुक आई फाइंड इट्स क्वाइट गुड, बिकॉज it has a lot of I mean it piqued my interest. The especially chapters on pollution, chapters on ecosystem and all those things are very good in this book. PT 365 environment is the most important thing for environment in my opinion, and questions हो जाते हैं उससे एग्जाम में. So and it's very well written and सब कुछ होता है इसमें. So I think this is the most important PT 365 also, and the most important source for environment also. So what I was talking about, right? Wildlife Protection Act में amendment आई, वो सब इसमें cover हो जाएगा. So this should be at a higher preference or priority over this book, because this should supersede whatever is written in that book. Next, I found this book also very nice. Class 12 की bio NCERT है, जिसमें there are these particular chapters 13, 14, 15 and 16 which talk about the environment. So they are very nice to read also, and they have a lot of information that can be used in prelims answers as well. This is that. Also there is this class 9 book. You must have do you remember एक chapter होता है जिसमें बहुत सारे thallophyta, bryophyta, monera ये सब होता था. वो सब आने लग गया है. I saw that in my time also. They had asked something about cnidarians, or how you pronounce that. But I think this has become important now. And ये पढ़ने से कुछ एक या दो एक क्वेश्चन तो बन ही जाता है प्रीलिम में. तो I like this one. बाकी chemistry class 11 NCERT का environmental chemistry chapter है एक. That also I feel is important. Like in my mains, a question came on photochemical smog. That was not very well explained in other sources, but the best source for that was this book. If you have any source which explains that, well and good, but I like this chapter as well. Then we need something for mains also alone. So Mrunal sir ka energy pillar jo hai in the same notes as the economy notes, I refer to those. And there is a pillar on sustainable development goals also. Jisme they talk about the sustainable development goals and the schemes that India has launched with respect to those 17 goals. So वो सब तो याद ही कर लिया था. And EIA process is also important for mains क्योंकि that is directly written as a point in the syllabus. So there is a high chance that can be asked. So that's what I also studied. I'll just have some water. For science and tech, again PT 365 for everything. I did not have to study this much because of my background. But जो biotech वगैरह होता है उसमें still there are some things that we don't understand. So science and technology PT 365, and there is an NCERT book on biotechnology. That's a new book. उसका जो first chapter है, that has a lot of things about recombinant DNA, genetically modified organisms, and biotechnology in general. So I kind of like that book as well, that chapter as well. For mains, there are some topics that you'll need to be extra careful about, like Nobel Prize winners of past years in the science and technology fields. So I used to study the past 2 years ka Nobel Prize winners and go. But in 2020 they asked some Nobel Prize that was won in 2014. So you never know if you'll be able to answer that or not, but at least हमें अपनी full prep के साथ जाना चाहिए जो हम कर सकते हैं. There is also syllabus point in GS3 which is called I think achievements of Indians in science and technology. So उसके लिए you'll have to study the Indian scientists and their contributions. You can just use the internet for that. And उसमें दिया हुआ है nanotechnology, cyber security, ये सारे applications उनके you can make 1 page का note so that introduction, conclusion, everything is ready, applications are ready, you just have to vomit it down on the paper. There are some other topics which are only for mains, like society, which comes in GS1, which is very tough yaar. And did you see the paper of this year? So society wale questions, have you seen? Quite hard they were. But there is this book of NCERT ka sociology. You can study selected topics from there, like impact of globalization on women, tribals, SC/STs, all that, and Sanskritization, globalization, westernization, all these things you can cover from that book. It's quite well written. For disaster management topic in GS3, I used to study the NDMA guidelines. So there is this NDMA, pata hai na, National Disaster Management Authority, that issues guidelines for different disasters. Earthquake में ये करना है, glacial lake outburst में ये करना है and all. So I used to follow. Maybe उसकी even if you just read introduction, right, उसमें भी points दिए होते हैं कि क्या क्या कर सकते हैं. So you find some innovative points also there. So those points are what you need to make note of and definitely use in your answers. Finally, internal security and land reforms, I just used internet and made some notes. Ethics के लिए I used Lexicon. Lexicon is a book. The book's name is Ethics, Integrity and Aptitude, and उसमें case studies भी हैं. But I just used that for the first reading to make notes, and उसके बाद notes were what I relied on. I can show you those notes also a little later on. One thing, इसमें जो सारे links हैं उसको आप डाउनलोड करके उस पेन ड्राइव में डाल सकते हैं क्या, क्योंकि आगे भी बहुत सारे लिंक्स आएंगे. या so I'll continue till then. So there are some other resources also which I used which helped me in my exam, but they are not for studying. You cannot say कि मैं ये देखूंगा for studying as a part of my syllabus or something. You should just watch things on maybe YouTube or something in your free time which interest you. So there was this channel on by Sabine on YouTube where she gives science news every week. Okay, so I used to follow that. It used to talk about all these applications of AI like quantum entanglement, AI applications, genomics and all. So sooner or later, I got a good idea of the even the biotech part or the space applications part from there. Baki, I really like to study about the environment. I used to regularly follow channels like Deep Look, National Geographic. There was a question in 2020 where it spoke about which of the following has a symbiotic association with fungi, and the answer was ant. And there was a video by Deep Look which actually showed how the association is. So there is this in 2023 there was a question where they asked about which of these organisms does a waggle dance or something, right? All those things, even that orangutan wala question, where all those things you will find here. But then don't look at those like you have to study, so I'm doing that, because there is a very poor cost to benefit ratio if you're considering it as studying. You should consider it as what you do in your free time. If you start watching these, they are very addictive and they are very interesting to watch also. Business Insider also used to watch like So Expensive and all that. So isme there was one something about frankincense, Gucci and all those things. So these are also covered there. Saffron, all these things. So and yeah, so my key takeaway from here is whatever you watch on YouTube, whatever movie or TV series also you watch, keep your eyes and ears open and have a curious mindset. Nahi samajh aaya kuch, or if you find something peculiar somewhere, just Google it or use ChatGPT for whatever. But do it. But yeah. So this was for prelims. Any questions? Anybody? उसमें मेंस का sources भी मैंने बताया था, but in general for prelims. But when we talk about answer writing, I started my answer writing after prelims because there is a lot of inertia for answer writing. You need to have that mindset that okay, after prelims I was forced to write answers because my mains was coming. But do you guys write answers regularly? Yes, that is very good, and that is a hobby that it's not hobby. That's a habit that is well cultivated, and yeah. So for me, I started after prelims, and time was the major issue. I used to take 15 to 20 minutes to write one answer, and that won't work. You'll have to maybe take 7 to 9 minutes or something. You know, right? That kitna time lagna chahiye. I think 9 minutes for a 10 markers and 12 minutes for a 15 marker. So how do I reduce this time? Firstly, when I wrote my first answer, मैं school वाला answer लिख रहा था जिसमें हम paragraphs लिखते हैं. So you already know कि हमें उसको we have to make it point wise, we have to make diagrams, we have to make flow charts, all those things. So उससे थोड़ा सा time कम हो जाता है. बाकी there is obviously a knowledge gap. I have not studied for mains properly. So as I gain knowledge also, I'll have to think less during the exam because all of that stuff will already be stored in my mind. So increase your knowledge, उससे भी time घटेगा. इंट्रो कंक्लूजन सोचने में भी बहुत टाइम जाता है. यू नो दैट वी हैव टू राइट इंट्रो बॉडी कंक्लूजन टाइप्स, राइट? सो इसमें बहुत टाइम जाता है इफ यू डोंट नो व्हाट टू राइट. सो यू हैव टू इम्प्रूव दीज. हाउ टू इम्प्रूव दीज वो देखना पड़ेगा. बाकी PYQs and test series I took a if I did any answer writing, that was a PYQ question which I wrote an answer to. And if you just Google that question, there will be like so many coaching institutes with the answers to that question, so you can compare कि तुमने क्या लिखा है and what they actually wanted to ask. test series, I took a test series of Vision IS for my mains answer writing. उसमें there were 12 tests, 3 of each GS1, GS2, GS3, GS4, and 3 separately essay की test series C. So those are what I used for my answer writing. Okay, so now we come to the GS1 topic. GS1, 2, 3, 4 एक बार discuss कर लेते हैं. Sir, इसमें वो links वगैरह हैं थोड़ा आगे भी हैं. Okay, okay, ठीक है. तो we'll come back to those links later on. तो अभी I'll just give a quick, thank you. I'll just give a quick summary of what I did. So GS1 में there is what? Geography is there, history is there, and society is there. And history, everything is there. I think medieval is not there. Or others also there, I don't know. But diagrams, for geography, obviously, diagrams are important. If they ask about cyclone or El Nino or Rossby waves or whatever, you have to draw a diagram there. They asked about ocean currents in this exam. They asked about in my mains which I gave last year. They asked about ocean currents. उसमें diagram बन गया था. They asked about some distribution of palm oil and all that. उसमें पूरा world map बन गया था. They asked about atmosphere, troposphere. उसमें पूरा diagram बन गया था. Rocks में शायद नहीं मैंने बनाया था, but yeah, so diagrams are very important in geography. The reason why I would say are important is that firstly they add something new to your paper. They reduce the monotony of the reader, and secondly they also reduce time. Like diagram बना दिया जल्दी से, इतनी space भर गई. So you have to spend less time on you have to spend less time on that particular question, because whatever you wanted to convey has been conveyed through that particular diagram. Resource distribution maps is important. They ask about industries and all that in the exam. I think they had asked this year about isthmuses and straits in different parts of the world. So obviously maps come into picture there. They had asked about palm oil and rubber cultivation, I think. So uske liye maps come into picture there. Relevance kept in mind. Obviously, whatever you write, it has to be relevant. Ab suppose they tell ki you don't have to draw irrelevant maps. Suppose the question is on how ocean currents are formed. You will not draw a world map which shows all the ocean currents, even if you know that. Keep your maps relevant, and keep your diagrams. If some city they asked about location of IT cities in the world, I think a couple of days back. You won't show ki IT cities hain Delhi, Mumbai and all that. So you have to keep the relevance of that, whether that is adding anything to your answer or not. You have to keep that in mind when you are drawing any diagram or any map. SDGs मैंने याद कर लिए थे सारे, all 17, and they greatly help in conclusion and introduction. For example, I think the society component of it is also there. It talks about women and other disadvantaged sections, marginalized sections of the society. So I think there, if you know them, right, you'll not have to think about conclusions and introductions in the exam, which becomes very important and very helpful finally. Next is point-wise writing. I think this you already know. Paragraphs लिखने बैठोगे तो it'll take years, but point-wise लिखना है सब कुछ. Syllabus for GS1 is quite vague, honestly. I lagged time for preparation for mains, and for GS2 and GS3, the syllabus is very, very well detailed. So you can take one topic, write 1 or 2 page notes for it, and be done with it. You don't have to read it again. But इसमें ये art and culture बोल देते हैं. So what does that mean? So that's why I would say my GS1 was relatively weaker as compared to the other ones, because उसमें बहुत clear points होते हैं. So this has a model answer sheet of my GS1, which we'll come to later to see how I've drawn diagrams and all. Now when we come to GS2, syllabus is very well given. You just have to follow what is given in the syllabus and you'll be done with it. Important things in GS2 is to write conclusions and introductions effectively, to cite reports, to cite case laws in your answers. So these are some things that I really paid attention to for GS2. Case laws. you can remember any case laws relating to basic structure of the constitution. You can remember IR Coelho. Recently, last year, there were cases like Vijay Madan Lal Chaudhary and Sunil Kumar Antil versus CBI and all. All these things you will also get to learn from news reading by reading newspapers, and you can greatly cite them in your answers. If they ask about whether CBI is caged parrot or not, you can talk about that Sunil Kumar Antil case. You can talk about um, uh, who called CBI caged parrot. It was a committee of the Supreme Court, I think. Articles are also very important. Yeah, last year I think they asked something about National Backward Classes Commission. Uske liye you need to know that it's the article 330, 338 B, right? Then they asked about Rajya Sabha. They asked about the vice president. Uska article I did not know, but privileges. If privileges are asked, you cannot talk about Article 105. Fundamental rights, duties. You already know. Amendments are also important. Some question will be there on local bodies. Usme you will write 72nd, 73rd and 74th amendment. Then ARC is what? Administrative Reforms Commission. This was done sometime back in the 2000s, and some other committees like the Sarkaria. So these things are what we skip for preparing for prelims. Lakshmikant book hai, usme all these things we skip, right? वो क्या recommendation Sarkaria ने दिया था, क्या recommendations Panchi ने दिया था. But all those things can be used in your answers here. If the question is something about governor, you can cite something related, some Sarkaria Commission recommendation, some Panchi Commission recommendation. If there is some question about federalism, these are very important topics which have the potential of being asked in the exam. So you can use all these committees and all for your answer. Now, if you see this ARC committee report, right, it has so many things ranging from civil services के ethics क्या होने चाहिए, civil services में क्या reforms चाहिए, RTIs कैसे होने चाहिए, all those things. So there are plenty of things that you can write. For example, second ARC had a recommendation that whatever scheme that you have in the government, 1% of the outlay of that scheme should be reserved for RTI and documentation. Okay, so whenever there is a question about e-governance or improving governance, you can cite this कि अभी तक हुआ नहीं है, but this should be done. As I mentioned, syllabus is great here. You just need to follow what is mentioned in the syllabus. World maps are important for IR. IR section is also there in the paper. So if they ask something about India-Bangladesh relations, so you can draw the map of Eastern India. Usme you can show कि Kolkata to Dhaka Maitri express rail line hai. Sabroom se wo Ramgarh, I think there's a bridge. You can show all that on the map itself. But don't draw irrelevant maps there also. Now, for example, I2 U2 was asked in my paper. So I would not draw the world map and show Israel, UAE, US and India there. So again, think about whether it is relevant or not. Central Asia ka aaya, so maybe you can draw a map showing ki Afghanistan, Iran to Afghanistan to Central Asia, India ja sakta hai. Like that. We'll come to the notes again later. GS3 is also a very nice paper, I feel, because the syllabus is so well written there. I'll give you some examples. The syllabus says that security challenges and their management in border areas, linkages of organized crime and terrorism. मेरे एग्जाम में पेपर क्वेश्चन था, discuss the types of organized crimes, describe the linkages between terrorists and organized crime. So you can see how relevant the syllabus is in this exam. One more question, food processing and related industries, scope and significance. Question tha, elaborate the scope and significance of the food processing industry in India. One more question, public distribution systems, objective, functioning, limitations, revamping. This is given in the syllabus. Question tha, what are challenges of public distribution system? How can it be made more effective and transparent? These are some examples. There were questions on cyber security, which was also directly taken from the syllabus. You can map them. So the thing is that not all questions will be directly like that. But these are the questions where we can really shine, we can really write the answers quickly, where we can really go prepared, so that we take less time in the other, we take less time in these and have more time for the other questions. We'll come to this later, but there is for me, GS3 was the paper where I had, ये जो सारे links है ना slides में, उनके वो download करना. So in GS3, there is a high room for visual representation. So I remember I never used to have a lot of time in GS3 actually. I don't know why, but there is a very high room for visual representations here, and that should be made use of a lot. For example, there are questions that come from environment, global warming. There's a question on James Webb Telescope. All of those, very nice diagrams can be used there, right? Then the GS3 basically is divided into economy, disaster management, security, environment, and science. These are the broader contours of the syllabus of GS3. And yeah, so for economy, you need to remember some stats like what is the GDP growth rate, what is the fiscal deficit, in terms of inclusive growth, inequality report जो होती है world inequality report उसका कि you can write in your introduction कि the world inequality report states that in India the top 1% of the economy hold like 60% of the wealth or something like that. And other stats are also there, percentage of people employed in agriculture, and the percentage share of GDP of these different things. So stats are important for economy. For disaster management, as I said, those NDMA guidelines were what I used. Those also had things like PM's 10 points on disaster risk reduction. Are you aware of those? So it talks about marginalized sections, women. Those can directly be quoted in your answer, in your conclusion or something. Ki PM's 10-point strategy on disaster risk reduction also talks about this. Sendai framework on disaster risk reduction is also, I think, a little important because all those things can be greatly used as introductions, conclusion, or whatever in your answers. And they can, and obviously you'll underline those points. So those will be relevant also. And these are some points which not everyone studies. So these are the points where you can show that your answers outshine others' answers. You can, NDMA, I've already told these NDMA guidelines are there for each disaster. So I studied those. And in every answer you can mention district disaster management plans, cooling action plan, whatever. So those district plans are also something that you can mention. SDGs and DPSPs are also important. SDGs can be quoted in any answer related to environment, climate change, whatever. DPSPs are also, I extensively, I remembered all the articles of DPSPs and I made use of them in any answer related to social upliftment or inclusive growth in GS2 as well as GS3. Science also, I think you should look at new age stuff and mention that in the exam, those buzzwords that we have. For cybersecurity, you can add key cryptocurrencies are giving a new challenge to cybersecurity, or now we are moving towards an age where everything is due to quantum cryptography, things will become foolproof or something like that. So look at new age stuff and talk about that in your science answers. When you talk about security, again, maps become important there. If there's something on drug trafficking, you can draw that golden crescent and golden triangle, because which causes drug trafficking. Border related issues, you can make a border of India China. If it's India China, then you can write about those flashpoints on our borders. Environment, you can use diagrams. Diagrams like, for example, there was a question asked about global warming. So that diagram is there, right? There's a sun and reflection from earth and all that. So you can draw all that. There was some question about cellulose also last time, which was a little out of place. But there also you can write something about, you can draw a diagram of how carbon dioxide, how carbon compounds are broken, how cellulose is broken by ruminants and all. So yeah, this is about GS3. We'll come to the GS3 ka answers a little later. Yeah, so GS4, GS4 ethics ka paper hai, and have you studied ethics or will you leave it, you guys? Are you doing ethics as a part of your coaching? Not right now, or yes? Not right now. So, thank you. Yeah, so the thing is that GS4 happens on the, so you have given an essay paper on one day, GS1 and 2 are on the next day, GS3 and 4 are on the consecutive day after that. So you're very tired by then and you're very fatigued, your hand is paining. So this fatigue definitely plays a role in this paper, and there is no time also. Did you see the last year's ethics paper? The questions padhne mein hi 1 ghanta chale jaye. So it's like that, and so what I feel, and I am a slow writer, I'm not a very fast writer, तो मेरे को बहुत problem होती थी इस paper में. So the best part here is again memorize stuff, definitions memorize कर लो. इसका भी syllabus is very well written. एक syllabus से point उठाया, उसके notes डाल दिए. I'll show you my notes here. Um, So this was the syllabus. So you see how detailed the syllabus is here. Ethics and human interface, essence, determinants and consequences of ethics in human actions. Questions will be like, what are the determinants of ethics and human interface? So you need to take each and every keyword here and write something about it. So I'll just show you how I made my notes here. So what is ethics? Now I'm going to memorize this, and I'm going to replicate the same thing in exam. And this is they also ask some quotes in the exam. Can you explain this quote? So this is a very commonly asked quote, so I wrote that also. Now we saw determinants of the ethical behavior in the syllabus. Now I wrote something there. Now I'll just memorize this, and if it's asked, okay, and if it's asked, I'll just use that in exam. Ethics in public administration, all these we can just write and expand one line. Ethics, morals and values mein they regularly keep asking differences. So similar, just write this. Ethics in public life, that is also part of the syllabus as mentioned there. Ye hai. Emulator, I mean this emulator is not the right word, but these are some people जिनके ethics के बारे में हम लिख सकते हैं in our answers. So for example, B.R. Ambedkar के say what can we learn? Empathy, compassion, social justice. Similarly, Sita Mata ke liye say what can we learn? We can learn that she left her comfort zone and accompanied Lord Ram. So similarly, some of the presently serving IS or other civil servants that are so unse what we can learn. We have learned all these in history. Henry Vivian de Rosio, V.S. Vidyasagar, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar. So from there we can learn the importance of education. These are some of the Nobel Prize winners. So all of these you can really quote in your answers, and they'll shine in your answers actually. Even the more recent ones like Greta Thunberg, environmental ethics, Snowden, all these people also we can easily quote. And examples in ethics is also very important, where you can support your answers with examples. Now, so for example, if you want to talk about failures of ethics in a particular place, because sometimes you want to write negative and then move towards the optimistic or positive side of things. So you can think about the recent happenings. Like last year, the Har Ghar Tiranga campaign mein, some PDS shops were like ki they were forcing the poor to buy Tiranga from them. So that is also a kind of a issue. Chinese aggressions on LAC despite COVID-19. That is also an ethical issue, right? They show a lack of empathy and compassion towards the rest of the world. Government's blind eye towards migrant as well. But there are hopes as well. What were the hopes? We came together to find oxygen during the second wave. World Food Program, all these social justice related schemes by the government. What are some of the examples of integrity? It's one example is that you are stopping for a traffic signal late at night even when no one's looking. So what essentially integrity is? Integrity means to do the right thing even when no one's looking. So some of the examples there. Think of some examples of emotional intelligence. All of these are keywords which are there in the syllabus and are regularly asked in the exam. So whenever something is asked about emotional intelligence, I would cite an example from here or something. There is ethical dilemma is also one very major thing that is asked. So some examples of that. So now I don't have to sit and think about all these examples during my exam. I can just cite it from here. One nice, if you're aware of the Aruna Schonbach case that had euthanasia in it, that is an example of ethical dilemma. So examples of where I was accountable, impartial, empathetic, compassionate, transparent, courageous, not even just I was, but how we can, or what are some of the examples of that. These are all things from the syllabus that we can do. Now sometimes it's also asked you what is the difference between leader and administrator. So these are notes for that. I mean, so I'm just giving an example, like on how I made notes for this. So there were like 16 pages notes, and they helped me. Uh, International ethics is one very cool topic. When you talk about, for example, Antarctica, should its resources be tapped or should it be left as it is? That is an ethical question in international domain. So these are those kinds of things. Apart from that, some learning about some of these scientists and all also helps, Immanuel Kant and all those. I'll show you. I'll just come down. So all these things are just, copying the keyword from the syllabus and just writing something related to those. Yeah. So philosophers, Gandhi's 7 social sins. If you know them, you can easily write that. And all these things can be used in essays also, where you have to write something related to. In every essay of mine, in the end, I used to always write a section of ethical issues related to that topic or something like that. So I used to use all of these things from there. So Gandhi 7 social sins, anything इनमें से एक ना एक तो किसी भी आंसर में आ ही जाएगा. Like you can write that if you remember them. So I also remembered some of these philosophers and all. So that also helped. Baki Indian ethics, you should cite these very extensively in your answers. Nishkama karma. Apart from that, Buddhism ke Panchsheel, 5 precepts of Buddhism which talk about ahimsa, no stealing and all. Similarly for Jainism as well. So yeah, these are some of the examples. Now there is a section of case studies also in the GS4 paper. So my strategy for that was I just looked at some toppers copies, saw how the case study is supposed to be answered, and went on my way from there. So again, very quick thing on what we can quickly write. कुछ ना कुछ disaster पे आता ही है हर बार. तो उसमें what will I write? Something out of the box, something new which you will not be able to write unless you have studied that. So for example, you can talk, so like use of railways, beds in COVID, makeshift helipads in flood affected areas and all that. In floods, you will engage with the Central Water Commission. Now, if you don't know that this is the protocol, you will never write this in the ethics answer. But now we know that, so we can write here. So yeah, this was regarding the GS4 paper. So and one more thing is that quotes, you need to remember, write in points, memorize stuff, and use middle path in your case studies. Never any extreme opinion. Essays, again, I think you would already have known that we need to write a multi-dimensional essays covering different aspects of political, social, economic and all. So my approach to essays was not key, I'm going to start an essay and then move to political, social, like that. My approach to essays was answering questions. For example, I remember one of my Vision IS essay papers had the question, he who does not economize has to agonize. Okay, this was the question. So I thought of questions like, what does it mean to economize? How will a person be agonized if they are not economized? So what does it mean to economize? Think about a few examples from different spheres: social, economic, political. That your essay is not key, this section is social, this section is political. It's a mix of everything, and that gives a good impression as well. Now, I have learned Sanskrit quite a lot in my school and all. So I remember a lot of Sanskrit shlok. So I used to make it a point कि कहीं ना कहीं तो कोई ना कोई श्लोक आ ही जाएगा, and that used to look good in my essay. Now remember, you cannot write in Devanagari script in the essay. So I used to write it in an anglicized fashion, but with a meaning. I will give you an example. Yeah. Okay, so first I'll just show you how my points were. So what my basic approach to essay was that I'll first think about what questions I have. Then I'll run through these to find relevant examples. So ancient history mein you can run through these topics. Then medieval history mein you can run through these topics. So for example, he who does not economize has to agonize. I started off with Muhammad bin Tughlaq's story of how he shifted capitals and how he used token currency. He did not economize and plan, so he had to agonize in the end. So essay, then you move to modern history and see if anything fits in your essay. Move to mythology. उस economize agonize वाले example में I use the example of Draupadi, how she had to sell herself in the bed because her husbands failed to economize before the bet. IR, international relations, may you can browse through. Environment, may you can browse through. If you don't know that, then Indira Gandhi, our late prime minister, was the only was the only world leader present in the 1972 Human Conference on Environment. I've used this in so many answers. um, and then again, science, social issues related stuff, LGBTQ and all. Ethics, as I said, that ethics was one of the components that I used to always fit in my essay. So I used some of those examples there as well. And then subheadings, I use subheadings. I think there is Anudeep Durishetty sir, one CSE AIR one, who had given such examples of subheadings. So I used to use that instead of writing questions. What does it mean to economics? We could use one of these subheadings or something. And I always used to write a story in the introduction part, and that could be either from my life or from history or any of these topics. And some of the quotes and all that I used to remember for the essay. So yeah, those things. Some shloka. Greta said, "How dare you?" And some of these slok and all I used to remember, and I used to use them in my essays. So I think that is enough for essays. If you want to see many answers, I can show you, but let's leave that for later. Okay, now tests for the mains portion. So I think it's important, especially if you don't have a habit of answer writing. It's important in general also, because the tests are what help you finish the paper in that time. Otherwise, the first test that I wrote, it took me 6 hours to write. I was in this Vision IAS ka test room there, and I sat there for 6 hours and I wrote my first GS1 test. From there, I realized that and I got good marks there. So there I realized I have the content, I need to reduce my time. So for that, I used to do that. So time management is obviously very necessary. You cannot switch your thoughts during the exam. That you just sat during the exam and वहाँ देख रहे हो वो नहीं करना है मेंस में. Just have to be focused on your paper and keep writing. If there is a question, that you don't, I think that is covered in later side anyway. So whatever feedback you get from mains test series that you write, right, take it with a pinch of salt, because everyone has a different interpretation. It's very subjective. I used to get very sad by the negative feedback that I used to get, but then I think it should be taken with a pinch of salt, because everyone is, it is going to, same thing is going to happen in the final one also. You don't know with what mentality the examiner is checking your paper, but at least for tests, it is not that high stakes here. So yeah, now exam related, again, read the question properly. I remember the first question in GS1 last year, it had the question was that if examples of Indian sculpture or something, how Indian sculpture in temples showed the daily life of that time. And I forgot to read sculpture, so I wrote the answer of how Indian temples show the culture of that time. So read the question properly. Don't look up. Just be focused on your paper. Don't see कि वो कितना लिख रहा है और कौन कितना लिख रहा है. Feel free to move ahead if you find some question to be tough. Our goal is to get the low-hanging fruits first, I think, and the tough questions can be answered later on. And keep an eye on your watch, obviously, and take feedback that you get during the exam very seriously. Feedback as in कि अभी इतना टाइम हुआ है, मेरे पास इतना टाइम बचा है, तो I have to answer these many questions. So keep that seriously, and make quick charts in the end if something remains. For example, there was a question on cyber security in GS3. I did not want to leave it because I knew it. तो उसमें मैं बस ऐसे बना के आ गया था एंड में कि there was a question of what cyber security challenges, और फिर ऐसे ये हो गया एक पार्ट. दूसरा पार्ट हो गया इंडियाज इनिशिएटिव्स ला ला ला. उसके बाद हो गया कि व्हाट इज रूम फॉर द फ्यूचर, ऐसे. सो मेक समथिंग, यू विल गेट सम मार्क्स एट लीस्ट. And it's not you're writing garbage, you're writing the right points only, you're just writing them in a very brief fashion. And yeah, don't write too much about things that you don't know. For example, there was a question about Gothenburg Protocol that was asked last time, which nobody knew. But some people actually wrote about it, कि ये photochemical smog के लिए, because the question was related to question was what is photochemical smog, and second part of question was explain Gothenburg Protocol. But what it so everybody wrote Gothenburg Protocol was for photochemical smog, and all, but that is wrong. So and imagine what impression the it gives to your examiner that ये तो bluff कर रहा है, तो शायद बाकी questions में भी bluff कर रहा हो. So I think that you should not write much about things that you don't know. There was some question about in GS2 case laws related to environment or something, and उसमें थोड़ा सा ही आता था, तो I the majority of the second page of mine was blank there. So I would say that if you don't know something, write in brief and just be done with it, and give that time to some other answer where you can be very good. And don't fret after the exam. For example, when I came to know that I had messed up my first question in the GS1 paper, I did not fret after it. Otherwise, you'll not be able to study for the rest of the exams. So just jo ho gaya, wo ho gaya. Just think about what you want to do next. Interview, I think after mains there's too much time on your hand. There's nothing to do at all. And the interview is, I think, the most uncertain and unpredictable stage of your entire preparation. But yeah, interview is one stage where you can actually have fun. I'm from Delhi. I wanted to know more about Delhi for my interview. So I went to National Museum, I went to Rajghat, I went to Qutub Minar, all these places. And then cooking was one of my hobbies. So I used to sit with my mom, and she used to teach me how to about all the masala and how to cook and all. So it is, I think this is one time when you can have fun. My experience, so are you aware of how the interview process is? There is a DAF, like a CV that you have to submit to the board, and they may or may not ask questions from there. Most of our mock interviews that we have, they are based off on the DAF, but finally it may or may not be. So in my case, nothing was asked from my DAF. So I was very unhappy with my interview experience, but luckily I got a decent score. It's not very high also. So newspaper is important for this stage. Some people also read two newspapers, Hindu and Indian Express, during this stage. I read only Hindu. Discussions are also something very nice. So we used to have a group of, I think you all have such a great friends group here. You can easily ask each other questions during the interview stage. So every night we used to ask each other questions for 1 hour on Google Meet before the interview. For me, I also spent this time to read some books on foreign policy, because Indian Foreign Service is my first preference, and I did not know anything about PSIR. So this is something that I had to do. Some other aspects that I'd like to touch upon are our lifestyles when we are preparing for this exam. For example, time management. There are 3 key things here: flexibility, consistency, and discipline. I used to follow an app called Forest to clock in how many hours I've given to each subject. So some of the months were very consistent. Like in this month, July, every day I have given consistently around 10 hours of preparation. But there were some other months where you need not give that. You cannot be 100% productive 100% of the time. So you need to, you need to chill also. So this was my December ka schedule, where I studied almost half as much as I studied in July, because July I had to prepare for means. To remember that you cannot study 100%, you cannot be 100% productive. And you see what time I was most focused every day. It's 2 a.m. at night. So the mains exam is from 2 p.m. to 5 p.m. I've given a mains test series from 2 a.m. to 5 a.m. also. So I think when I was at work, right, I did a course from Harvard where they told that every one of us has a time where we are the most productive during the day. You need to find that time and work on it. I mean, don't fret if you cannot wake up at 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. and study for this exam. I think what is important is that we need to cover the syllabus. We need to study. We need to prepare well. And I think this is the time where no one even disturbed me. So this was the best time for me. So I had flexibility and consistency. You can say that I lacked discipline, which I need to inculcate now, I guess. And for me, in my case, my majority of my time went to math only between prelims and mains. So around 70% of my time went to math, and only 32% of my time went to, I don't know why I did this slide anyway. And it is important also to rejuvenate. So for example, you must have seen that I studied for like 9 or 10 hours every day, but beyond that time it was all what I did for myself, YouTube or gym or whatever I wanted to do. And it is very important for your mental health. This exam will definitely make you very anxious at times, so it is important to take care of your mental health and chill also sometimes. You also have lots of time post mains. So if there are some things that you have left for prelims or mains, you can do that. Or you can also relax, or have a plan B also in mind. You can cultivate some other skills during this time. Consistency curve isn't flat. As I explained, that you will not see a graph like this. It will be like this. Sometimes you're very productive, sometimes you're not. Even if I clocked 10 hours on one day, that might have been productively only like 6 or 7 hours. So if you're not able to be consistent, or if there are bouts of failure or bouts of times when you don't feel like studying, don't be too harsh on yourself. And I guess just you just remember that it's always a sine curve, where if there is a ebb, then there'll be a high as well. um, Motivation, so there was another question that was asked, that what were your sources of motivation. So I never followed shorts of YouTube shorts, because those are those used to give me more anxiety actually. So I think for me motivation was this only, that I have maintained a graph till here, so I have to maintain it on this day as well. If I am um, if I'm not able to, if I have to go somewhere for a dinner, or if I have to go to a wedding or something, I used to compensate that for the before the previous day itself. Like instead of looking at YouTube from 3 to 5 a.m., I used to study. So matlab essay type say, I used to keep myself motivated. And if this works for you, this, I mean, it worked quite well for me. So if this works for you, you can definitely try it once. uh, yeah, and I the ये जो toppers videos and all है, I just watched them once before I started preparing and once after I cleared prelims. उसके अलावा it's useless, I think. Sorry. Okay. Some other important aspects. I think I feel it's important to have a plan B in hand. I had a job and I was going to give this upcoming event, prelims, and if I did not clear it, then I would have ended my UPSC preparation and gone for a job. I think plan B, having a plan B also helps us to maintain our mental health. If you don't have a plan B, it's okay, but if it's possible for you to have one, then I think you should have one in your hand. Failure will come and go, and it's okay to accept it. It's okay to even cry over it, but it's fine. I mean, it's a part of this journey. Sleep schedule also. I think in my case, my sleep schedule was very bad, but I used to try to fix it a week or two before prelims and mains. I used to use an app called PZIZZ for that, where they used to tell some story or something to make you sleep. So I used to use that before prelims and mains to get back to a good sleep schedule. But I think whatever time works for you the best, you should do that. I think you're in a coaching, so that might not work for you, but I mean, in my case, I was very flexible with how I prepared. So thank you. This is the link to my blog, where I've not detailed anything about my optional right now, because I think there are very few people, but everything is available here. So in case you want to know anything, I've not shown many of my answers and all also, but all those are available on that slide. So I think I'll take some questions if you have any. Yes. I think firstly you'll have to give more tests now, because we have been tuned. If this is not your first attempt, we have been tuned to a different set of strategy of answering questions. So I think new strategies will be only be able to evolve once we give more tests of this kind, where there is only one correct, two correct. Apart from that, I do feel that the sources that I mentioned are necessary but not sufficient. So I think it's more about keeping our eyes and ears even more open now. And lastly, about CSAT, I think that will require an extra effort, because I have heard that this year's paper was quite hard.
Thank you.
Sir, my question is, how much part of your journey was merely an exercise of rote learning, as you are an engineer? So can you tell me some sort of percentage?
I think maybe 2 months before prelims was when it was majority rote learning, and maybe some part of mains as well, like ethics. As I said, I had memorized all of those things. It's not, I wouldn't say it's rote learning, but it's understanding and memorizing, because you don't have time to answer, to think and write in the exam. So it's not that you're just learning, you're just remembering without understanding. You have to understand, because questions will not be direct, questions will be indirect. So you need to understand, memorize, and then replicate in the exam. So I would say prelims se pehle it involves a lot of rote learning, especially when you have to learn about reports and all those things. There you have to use mnemonics and all to help you remember stuff. But otherwise, for basics and everything, it is a very analytical approach for geography and all those subjects. Even for history, for if you're studying history from a non-prelims perspective, you have to understand what happened. You have to overlap timelines. One timeline is with respect to how the status of women changed from ancient India to medieval India or modern India. The other is how the caste system evolved. Third is how the trade evolved. And when you link it with how evolution of gold coins took place, those will be directly linked. That when trade stopped, gold stopped coming from Rome, and then gold coins also reduced. So you have to overlap all these timelines and understand what exactly happened. And that will help you eliminate some answers and options in prelims as well. But you have to obviously memorize some things for prelims as well.
So another question is, what sort of advice you are going to give to the CSAT preference? Matlab, what sort of preparation we should be doing in the fluctuating times of examination, especially regarding CSAT?
Right. So first thing is have a plan B if possible, because of the sheer unpredictability of this exam. Secondly, I would say that um, I did not have to prepare for CSAT, so I do not know how the preparation will go. But I think you should add CSAT also to your prep now. Maybe a separate module or something which solely deals with CSAT. I'm sure a lot of videos will come up on YouTube very soon with regards to solving strategies and all. Look into that. And also, like, some people have a strategy of solving math first, then going to English or something. But in my view, the fact is that my engineering background helped me understand कि कौन सा question जल्दी हो जाएगा, कौन सा question जल्दी नहीं होगा. So the jaldi wala I used to finish first, then move to English, and then come back to the hard questions of math and leave them if there's no time. That was my strategy. So yeah, so that is it, I would say.
So, any suggestion about revision?
Right, I think I did not touch upon that. But I think revision is the most important but the most boring part of the preparation. Once you are very comfortable with the basics, so सारी नई चीजें तो सीख ली, उसके बाद it's like trying to remember the same thing again and again, which is very boring. What I used to just do is that I never had a lot of notes for prelims. For mains, I made notes. For prelims, I did not have many notes. So whatever I used to underline or highlight in my PDFs, I used to just go back to them. Suppose I read Lakshmikant, उसमें कुछ highlight कर दिया. Revision के time, just read the highlighted portions. And revision ke time I also used to read those things that I answered incorrectly. I showed you a PDF, right? Where so this was my revision strategy, and I think multiple revisions will be required for each topic, for polity, everything. And I used to do one revision a couple of months before prelims and one just before prelims. Yes.
Sir, many topics
answer
we can't understand, and we give much focus on that topic. That takes too much time, and we left us what we are planning to read today or next day. So what should we do? We left that topic or not?
See, in my case, what I used to do is that I never made set goals for myself कि मैंने आज इतना करना है, आज इतना करना है, ऐसे. I used to give in 9 to 10 hours every day, and धीरे धीरे करके ना वो sufficient होता है कि तुम्हारा syllabus भी हो जाता है. Gradually, eventually, अगर तुम इतना consistency maintain कर पाते हो, तो at least basics के time पे मेरा ये plan था कि मैं डिटेल में जाऊँगा जो भी पढ़ रहा हूँ. and जो समझ नहीं आया, maybe ask your friends or go to YouTube or ask ChatGPT for it. And हाँ, तो मतलब ये मेरा स्ट्रैटेजी होता था फॉर थिंग्स दैट आई डोंट अंडरस्टैंड. बट टुवर्ड्स द एंड ना, जब जब प्रीलिम्स वगैरह पास आ रहा है, तो यू माइट नॉट हैव द टाइम टू एक्चुअली गो इनटू डिटेल अबाउट एवरीथिंग. तो उसमें यू कैन लीव इफ यू डोंट हैव टाइम. उसमें टाइम का कंस्टेंट आता है, बट व्हेन यू आर स्टडिंग बेसिक्स एंड ऑल एंड यू आर गिविंग इनफ नंबर ऑफ आवर्स एवरी डे, आई डोंट थिंक कि डिटेल में नहीं जाना चाहिए. आई थिंक डिटेल में ही जाना चाहिए.
What are the mistakes you learned from your first attempt?
राइट. फर्स्ट इसकी टेस्ट सीरीज दो यार प्रीलिम्स की. एंड अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट, आई मीन आई वाज वर्किंग तब. आई थिंक मेरे को वो भी एक मिस्टेक.
In second attempt you are also working, मतलब 2 महीने पहले आपने
हाँ, हाँ,
प्री
हाँ.
के अपना जॉब वो किया था, फिर भी आपने कर लिया. तो आपको मतलब ऐसा क्या था कि फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट में अगर ये मिस्टेक नहीं करता है तो मतलब
वो प्रीलिम्स के जस्ट पहले जो टाइम होता है ना, 1 या 2 महीने का, दैट इज़ द मोस्ट क्रूशियल टाइम आई फील. एंड फर्स्ट अटेम्प्ट में मेरा कुछ बहुत डेडलाइन वगैरह आई हुई थी जॉब में, तो मैं सिर्फ 2 दिन की छुट्टी ले पाया था बिफोर प्रीलिम्स टू एक्चुअली स्टडी. उससे पहले आई वाज studying as an extra effort for prelims. So I think that time before prelims is very important, and उस time में if you are able to maintain your productivity, तो that's the best thing that can happen. तो ये I think important है कि prelims से जो 1-2 महीने पहले की बात होती है, उसमें major काम उसमें ही होता है.
Okay, thank you sir.
Good evening, sir.
Yes.
Sir, I want to know from you that handwritten or digital notes, which are best?
I have both. I'll show you. Sorry. So I showed you those handwritten ones, right? I feel digital notes are slightly better because वो stored हो रहते हैं, right? So I used to handwrite on digital platforms. So I've not shown you the notes of my GS 3, for example. So GS3 में मेरे पास एक तो हैंड रिटन भी हैं ऐसे टाइप्स के, जिसमें आई मेड टॉपिक्स. उसमें भी जैसे टॉपिक जो है उसके बेसिस पे जो भी नोट्स होने चाहिए, लाइक दीज आर अबाउट लैंड रिफॉर्म्स. तो उसके लिए मैंने थोड़ा सा 1 or 2 पेजेस के नोट्स बना लिए थे बस. एंड दिस इज़ व्हाट आई रेड बिफोर द एग्जाम. सप्लाई चेन मैनेजमेंट उसमें एक टॉपिक है सिलेबस में, तो उसके लिए व्हाट इट मीन्स, अगर क्वेश्चन आ जाए तो यू कैन डायरेक्टली राइट दिस डेफिनेशन. पीडीएस एंड हंगर का मैंने वो लिखा था. फिर लिमिटेशन और रिवैम्पिंग जो मैंने नोट्स में बनाया था वो डायरेक्ट एग्जाम में आ गया था. तो आई थिंक सिलेबस ये, सो आई एम डाइग्रेसिंग, सॉरी, बट दिस इज़ वन वे ऑफ राइटिंग नोट्स. एंड आई थिंक मेरे को तो जो भी कंफर्टेबल लगे, अगर मेरे को बैठ के करने का मन कर रहा है तो मैं लिख लेता था, अगर मेरे को लेट के करने का मन कर रहा है तो मैं टाइप कर लेता था. It was like that. So I have made these notes also. So I think whatever suits you. So I think जितनी flexible, you don't have to submit these notes to anybody for correction, right? जो मन कर रहा है कर लो, सब ठीक है.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any other questions?
I think there is one question there. What qualities does UPSC want in candidates? I don't know.
First of all, congratulations, sir,
Thank
for
you.
your success. And my question is that which services did you choose,
My first preference was Indian Foreign Service.
and why did you choose IFS over IAS?
Actually, that was the reason why I went into my preparation, thinking about the Indian Foreign Service only. I have an interest in international affairs, and I felt that the coming decades are more the so-called Asian century, and India will have a major role to play in the world economy at the same time.
Sir, my second question is, would it be wise to make my own strategy or follow a topper strategy?
I think it would be wise to look at these strategies and see whatever suits you the best from each strategy, and then make your own strategy.
And last question, where can I find the link for essay? I
For?
checked your website. I can't see
Okay,
essay.
I might have not. It's my blog, so I might have not updated it yet. But all of this will come there.
Okay,
I have an essay also here, but all of this will come over there. Maybe you can just follow it, so you'll get updates whenever I update add another article to the blog.
Good evening, sir.
Yes.
Sir, how to deal with the stress or low phases during the preparation?
Enjoy, like YouTube देख लो, जो करना है कर लो, but remember कि जो तुम मिस कर रहे हो उसका compensate भी करना पड़ेगा आगे जाके. So अगर आज आप, मेरा तो ऐसा होता है, अगर मैं आज suppose 4 घंटे दे रहा हूँ तो I'll spread like, अगर if my 9 hours is my target and 4 hours I've done one day, तो बाकी 5 days में एक एक hour extra हो जाएगा, like that. तो मतलब it's not कि you have to be like this, it can be like this, but try to maintain consistency. And अगर नहीं हो रहा है तो you can chill for some time, उसमें कोई problem नहीं है. Guilt अपने आप ही आ जाएगा when you binge watch a TV series.
Question I have. So, how did you go about newspapers? Like what I felt during writing this prelims, the way I was following newspapers, that was not sufficient. Then now I am thinking, should I make notes out of the newspapers or what?
See, if you think newspapers say, don't make notes out of editorials and all, because that will take too much of your time, and I mean that. Yeah.
I also felt that was not
Yeah.
feasible for
But
me.
there are some small tidbits of news. Jesse, once something came about some Charadiyo Midam of Assam. So I just made a note of that in LinkedIn, like one bullet point or something. So you can do that. So there was once, I think when the cheetah relocation took place, there was one thing about Boma technique of how cheetahs are brought into enclosures. So I just made a quick note of that anywhere in your Evernote or in your notebook or anything. That helps, because those are things that you won't remember, right? But they seem important, so you can do that. Or I think PT 365 and everything covers only
But
everything.
I felt that PT 365 did not help this time much. The very low cost benefit. So,
Okay, I mean, okay.
The current affairs is my main issue during the preparation.
Okay, then I think it will be more appropriate that again, even maybe you should again keep your eyes and ears open whenever you're watching something. तो उसका keep in mind the implication of it. But at least in 2021 PT 365 थोड़ा सा help किया था, इसलिए मैंने इस attempt के लिए भी PT 365 से ही prepare किया था. But if the trends are changing, then we'll also have to change according to that. So.
Sir, I have some questions regarding maths optional also. So will you deal with that also? Right now.
I think you can ping me.
Okay.
Or ma'am, what please suggest, what should I take up questions of?
How many math students are here? Only one. So you guys are comfortable with this question?
I'll ask later now when everybody goes.
Yeah, maybe we can catch up after everyone goes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else?
Hello, sir. So nowadays, especially in prelims paper, how much you study, you have to guess. So we can say that luck is overlapping the hard work.
I think that's there for the entire thing only. You never know how much you'll score in interview. You never know how much you'll score in mains. It was relatively more transparent in prelim, but that has changed now. So yeah, luck does play a role in this exam. So your question was?
Luck is overlapping the hard work. So what we should do?
I mean, I can do nothing, no. We have gone into this exam knowing that there is a luck factor involved here. I did not know I'll clear. I was studying for prelims that morning also when the result came. So I don't know, matlab, you can never be sure of what will happen. So when you're best, as I said, have a plan B in hand probably.
Thank you.
I don't know that actually, because you never know kya ho. And you saw my schedule and all, right? That is the time I spent. बट ऐसा कुछ फिक्स नंबर नहीं है, सबका अलग होता है. एवरीबडी हैज़ अ डिफरेंट माइंड सेट व्हेन दे गो इनटू द प्रिपरेशन. एवरीवन हैज़ डिफरेंट ऑप्शनल्स. सब फैक्टर्स डिपेंड करता है. यू जस्ट हैव टू गिव इट योर बेस्ट वट एवर यू कैन. यस.
कोई और है?
Actually, I have to ask about the. Sir, actually, my question is very specific about economics. I am just asking you about how to deal about some of the very conceptual topics of the economics like infrastructure, agriculture, and all. And how did you dealt with all these?
I saw Mrunal sir's lectures for it, and they were in general enough for me. Apart from that, there are still some topics which are very confusing, like bond yields and all that, right? So for that, I think again, I used ChatGPT and Google only. ChatGPT, I used to ask the question if I don't understand something, I used to mark that and explain this again properly. Thoda sa tailored learning types. Apart from that, YouTube and Google only were my sources. But here you have friends and all, right? So you can ask. I don't have any friends during my preparation, but you have so many here, so you can ask your friends for help, I think.
The question is, sir, about self-evaluating. Like you have given the test at home by yourself. Also, then how about how to go about evaluating that particular test?
For prelims or mains?
Both.
Both. You are a part of Vision IAS का coaching, right? So you will probably have test series already there, ना? तो उसकी rank percentile के basis पे you can evaluate yourself a little bit. Mains का test series, maybe you'll get the feedback, proper feedback from Vision IAS and all. वो मैं घर पे बैठ के करता था, but I used to upload them on Vision IAS का portal from home. तो पता चल जाता है उससे how your performance is. उसमें rank वगैरह आती है, I think वही है best way of evaluation. Yeah. You had a question?
So while writing essays, I found that my language is very simple as comparison to the topper's language of essay. So how can I improve it?
I think simple language helps only, but if
it's too much simple. Like we write a paragraph in a small class.
Okay, then I think you should read the editorials and everything. Those things help. Maybe you can cultivate a habit of. कितना ही करोगे यार, अभी फिर इतने पढ़ना होता है इसमें कि how will you read books and all. But if you can, then do that, I guess. Yeah, for building a better vocabulary. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all of you for coming. Thank you, Pourush. So Pourush has proved his Pourush, and hope some of you will also. Okay, and answering your question, fortune will favor the bold. Okay, I'm very sleepy. Okay, तो जितना मेहनत करोगे ना, किस्मत भी साथ देगी. किस्मत हमें लगता है जब यहाँ खड़े होते लगता है बड़ा आसान है, इतना आसान नहीं होता. उन्होंने बहुत मेहनत की है ना, तो किस्मत वाला पार्ट इतना वरी मत किया करो. And let's have a huge round of applause for Pourush.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I hope to see a lot of you in the list in the coming years, maybe next year only. So all the best, everybody.